Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarita Cucumber and in today's video I thought I'd do something a little bit different than normal. So as most of you will know by now, I'm obsessed with Life is Strange. No, obsessed. It's unhealthy. I think about it too much. Send help. My potential problems aside, I love this game a whole lot and of course I like making content about it for you guys. I've been scouring my mind lately to find some more videos to make that don't just cover what will happen in the next episode. I want to think about the game in a wider sense, the bigger picture, where could Shaun and Daniel end up, and with the limited evidence that we have, could we piece together what the ending would be? And to that I answer, yes. We can actually begin to think about how this so far tragic tale could end up wrapping itself up in the end for one of the brothers. You see, Daniel is such a complex character so far. His growth as a person is clearly actively being shaped by Shaun's decisions, with his morality, power usage, and trust of his older brother all at play within the choices that you've made so far and will continue to make throughout the next 3 episodes. His power is also still developing and we have zero idea of how it will continue to go. At the moment, Daniel's way too much of a wildcard to predict how his story will end by episode 5. By episode 2 of Life is Strange 1, we didn't even know that Max Caulfield could go back through photos, so God knows what could happen with Daniel. However, I can tell you one thing. The ending will not be a binary choice this time like it was in Season 1. Don't Nod have spoken about mistakes they made developing Season 1 and have claimed to have taken on board most of the fan criticism, and a lot of the game's critics really took Episode 5's dual ending decision as a blow to the overall impact of the game, as it invalidated most of the players' actions if a certain ending was chosen. The majority of the people were actually very unhappy with their options to end the game, and to add to this, so far at the end of each episode, our actions and consequences are broken up between the two boys, with separate implications for Shaun and Daniel. For example, telling Daniel to use his power as a last resort would show up on his side, whereas calling Lila would show up on Shaun's side. Why then would it make any sense for all of this to be different for the ending? All of this considered, I feel like the boys will both have separate endings from each other depending on how each has been affected by the player's choices throughout the game. We know that Daniel's ending will likely be a factor in what kind of person he's raised to be, but what about for his older brother? Well, I was taking a look at some of the choices that Shaun can make, and while a lot of them are directly influential on Daniel so far, the rest of them are central to the type of person he is to other people. Whether he remains sentimental and courteous to his best friend Lila, whether he is a nice person and tips Cassidy money, whether he manages to convince Doris that he isn't suspicious, that kind of thing. So then I asked myself, as I sat in my theorising chair, how would all of this come to affect him in the future? Under what circumstances would Shaun be affected by how he treated people on the road and how they judged him? And I have an answer to that, but I want you to think of something for a minute. Something Claire, Shaun's grandmother, said to him in episode 2. You can't just run from the law like fugitives. And you know what? She's right. So far, we've had so many close calls with the police, and even Daniel is sick of running, asking stuff like, why do you always force us to run, Shaun? The boys can't run forever. How do they expect to live in Mexico? To cross the border and then live out their lives as hermits, never able to leave Puerto Lobos? How will it be any different from living in Beaver Creek? Now, I'd also like you to think about the first thing that Shaun said upon arriving home from school with Lila, and no, I don't mean smoking. When he comes in, he becomes Judge Diaz, presiding over the case of the final Choco Crisp between his brother and father. Seems like an odd reference to court to throw in, doesn't it? Now think to episode 2. If you prayed with Claire, she says, give us the strength to get over the hardships of the past and the trials of the future. I know that she may be old, but trials seems like a bit of an odd piece of vocabulary there, and while it might just refer to the struggles that are faced by everyone, trials may be foreshadowing to a court trial. Another reason I have to believe this is because in Life is Strange 1, around the same time that the court things are kind of mentioned, that's when Jefferson is given his little monologue, which ends up foreshadowing the entirety of episode 4 and 5. I think that Shaun will stand trial for his actions in court once he's captured. Think about it. His actions, whether malicious or gratuitous, have to add up to some form of consequence for his character. This game isn't just about Daniel, it's about Shaun too, and his ending must be influenced by something. By what we can see, his choices vary based on his good or bad behaviour, or him being caring and nice to people, thus building a good character. Which is interesting, since in a court they will often use a person's good character to defend them against a sentence. It will be much harder for Shaun to be convicted with everybody on the road backing him up. He can plead to the police exactly what he pled to Claire, that he was scared and wanted to protect Daniel, but they're not going to believe him unless he's a believable person. If Shaun has left Seattle and has been beating up gas station owners, stealing from stores, and neglecting to be a morally upstanding citizen, they're not going to believe anything he says, and it will be used against him. I think that once we serve trial, several people we've interacted with will be called up to the stand to give a statement about Shaun. You know, the type of person he is, the interactions they've had with him. The worse we've treated people, the more likely they are to stand against us or to be brutally honest rather than trying to make Shaun seem like a nice person. Starting off with the first person we really meet on the road, Hank Stamper. We first meet him at the Highway 5 gas station, and the first choice we have is whether to shoplift or not. Shoplifting here would instantly be enough to net Shaun an offence for theft, if not have his case for being a good person for not being guilty of Officer Matthews' murder undermined. The next choice we have is with Hank outside. We can choose to discuss why he's hassling us, to yell at Daniel to flee, or to attack Hank. Since the police know that we were at the gas station, Hank's testimony in court would likely be much more negative if you attacked him. Oh, but Luke, I hear you say, Hank is an old racist. He's going to say bad stuff about us no matter what. And to that I say, no, he's not. Look at the article in the abandoned hut in episode 2 that you can read on Shaun's cabinet. If we choose not to steal, Hank paints himself as a caring father figure who saw two lost boys on the road and tried to help them. I think that he will pull the same act in court, and while it clearly isn't true, it will sure as hell help Shaun's case, and he'll be portrayed as a scared boy who was trying to run away rather than fight. Not the type to murder somebody, surely. The next choice we have with Hank is to knock him out and steal camping supplies for Shaun and Daniel. If we do this, Claire will point out in episode 2 that Shaun is a suspect of homicide and assault and robbery. This, unlike Officer Matthews' death, can't be explained away. Shaun did commit a crime here, regardless of how much he needed the gear or how Hank had tied him up. There is undeniably the crime, and I won't get into the legal technicality of it, but it's obvious enough causation, and this is where I feel that one of the endings will tie in, which would be Shaun serving some time in prison rather than a sentence for murder. I feel like if Shaun is cleared of murder, the charges for assault and robbery would persist, and possibly net him a few years in jail for it. However, if the player chose not to steal, there would be no way to prove that Shaun had done anything malicious at the gas station, and so would never have this charge to begin with. Interesting to note also that if Doris thought we were suspicious, she may act against us in court. However, if we manage to convince her that we were okay at the store counter, she might favour us if she ends up making an appearance in court, but I don't think this is likely because she was quite a minor character. Next, we meet Brody. I don't think Brody will testify against us in court under any circumstance, even if Daniel steals from him. Brody knows that we're innocent from having spent a bit of time with us, and honestly, there'd be no way for the court to even pull him in. They don't know we spent time with him, or even that we've met, and there were no major choices to do with helping or hurting Brody, apart from letting Daniel stealing his hula girl, which I don't think will cause him to testify. I don't think Brody will be a part of the actual trial, yet he may attend it as a spectator, may watch a live stream, or write about it on his blog, as the case will likely be very high publicity given all the riots in Seattle that have taken place over the shooting. The next person that we have the opportunity to contact is Lila Park, our best friend from Seattle. She hasn't had word from us in days besides a few one-word texts. Lila proves in her phone call that she's supportive of Shaun and even offers to come pick him up and start a GoFundMe to get him a lawyer. And it's so amazing to hear her voice, even as Shaun says, if Shaun appears in court, as his best friend, Lila would most definitely be asked to talk about him and how he's been in the past, and she will more than likely speak about him calling her since the police know about this already. I think that if Lila is called for all 5 episodes, she will defend you in court, talking about how all Shaun wanted to do was to come home, but he was too scared the entire time. Through contacting Lila, we don't sever the bond of the friendship, and she'll be likely to hear us again in episode 2. However, if we choose not to call her, we know that by Christmas time, just 2 months after the boys flee, she's been admitted to a psych ward, unable to cope with the stress of Shaun and Daniel being on the run. Now, Lila might get treatment for this, and that's amazing, but who's to say that by the time the court case rolls around, Lila doesn't resent Shaun for not calling her? She saw that he was online that one time, she knows he isn't dead as he keeps appearing in the news, yet he's not contacting her. Why? Surely Shaun was her best friend. After almost a year of therapy, Lila may never see Shaun as her friend again and instead see him as somebody who abandoned her, leading her to testify against him in court, citing that once on the run, he changed. In episode 2, we interact with a fair few characters, most noticeably that of the Ericksons and the Reynolds. However, before that, we do stumble across the abandoned cabin where a father used to live in his children before falling ill with cancer and presumably passing away, as his chemotherapy letters would indicate. I'd say that his kids would testify in court, judging by the graffiti that Shaun and Daniel wrote, letting themselves in, but there isn't really much of a choice that would change how they view us, and the characters were so minor that I can't ever see them being reintroduced. However, going back to episode 2 as a whole, if we do go to court, Claire and Stephen, our grandparents, would definitely be part of the trial. They'll let us stay in the house for a week, and there were pretty significant choices that would come to change how Claire and Stephen would view us. For Stephen, we had the major choice to either talk to him about Daniel's power or try and hide the secret. If we talk to him about the power, he's more trusting of us and understands Shaun's situation better. At the end of the episode, there is also the opportunity to let Daniel save him with the power after the cupboard falls on him. The fact that we can see that this action will have consequences for both of the brothers means that this will not just affect Daniel's behaviour in the future, but more than likely we'll see Claire and Stephen again, and this may change their judgment of us, noting that Stephen's leg being hurt will actually have consequences down the line. Not to mention that there are multiple opportunities to make Claire like or dislike our actions, such as by cleaning up the house, not having Daniel swear, making Shaun and Daniel pray with her, not breaking the lock, etc. It's hard to see Claire or Stephen making a convincing argument against us in court. However, they might if we end up getting them arrested for being accomplices in harbouring fugitives, especially due to the fact that there is incriminating evidence in the house, especially if Shaun logged into Facebook or made a call to Lila. Even so, the note on the back of the door is incriminating for Claire and Stephen, and there may be evidence of them around the house. Next up are the Ericksons, who we meet midway through episode 2, or towards the end. Charles and Chris both greet the brothers nicely enough, however I don't think Charles cares enough about Shaun to actually appear in court to defend him. However, there are multiple trees in the Captain Spirit storyline that can go down in episode 2. Chris can potentially die having been hit by a car, or he can live and Charles promises to seek help if Shaun managed to convince him. I think that if Daniel keeps Chris alive through telling him the truth or saving him, and Shaun manages to have an honest conversation with Charles about the issues, he might stand by the boys and publicly defend them. We also know that Charles will have a natural bias against the authorities due to what happened with his late wife Emily, so he would likely stand by Shaun and Daniel out of principle since he doesn't want any injustice to take place again. However, he may also come despondent if we allow Chris to fall into harm's way, but on the other hand, this may ignite a spark in him against the police, and he'd only stand by the Diaz case more and more. However, Charles is an unpredictable character so far, and his personality varies a lot between that in Captain Spirit and that in episode 2, so we're not sure how he's going to react to any of the events, but I could see him appearing in court, maybe. We also know that Cassie and Finn, the punks we meet in episode 2, will play a significant role throughout the third episode and would likely be part of this court sequence. However, we also have no idea whether they'll be with or against us by the end of the episode. We don't know enough about them yet, and honestly, it's too hard to say where the story dynamic will go in regards to the weed farm or Shaun's relationship with them, so I couldn't say whether they'll defend us or not. I think that depending on how many people testify for or against us during our trial in court, there'll be different outcomes for Shaun. This is completely wild speculation at this point, but I think a few options could be like Shaun being cleared of all charges, being sentenced for some time in prison, being sentenced to life in prison, or in an extreme case, receiving the death penalty. As of now, capital punishment is no longer being enforced in Washington state. However, it was only stopped in 2018, meaning that by 2017, when episode 5 will be taking place, Shaun could still receive the death penalty per state law for any crimes committed, though I think you'd have to play like a very bad person to achieve this ending. If there is a jury, Shaun's witnesses and testifiers would make a lot of sense in whether he's guilty or not guilty for the murder of Officer Matthews, and this would likely be the direct influence of whether the jury decides to find him guilty or not guilty. Typically, the jury will make a judgment out of character before they even sentence somebody, so if Shaun has been acting criminal on the run, they're much more likely to sentence him. There's also Karen to consider. Would Karen defend Shaun in court? Would this be how, as a mother, she manages to redeem herself? It would make a lot of sense, given her letter and presence in the story, for her to stand by Shaun in court, the mother he pushes himself so much to hate for saving him from being sentenced. Yet, This would remove the choice-based elements from this segment of the story, but we could definitely see Karen in court. Achievements such as Lone Wolf in episode 4 imply that Daniel and Shaun will be separated, and She-Wolf implies we will meet Karen, and this only further reinforces the idea that the court situation really could take place. However, given all of this, there are points against it. Episode 5 of Life is Strange was criticised for its nightmare sequence, as it was very long and boring for a lot of people. I'm worried that the courtroom could be a very long experience, with every witness and person from Shaun's past speaking up about him, and with it all taking place in one location, I'm concerned that it would be boring for a lot of people. There's also the issue of possibly explaining American law, which may be able to be handled by the judge, but it might complicate things for people who play Life is Strange outside of the US. Additionally, court cases like this can sometimes last months to years, but this dilemma could easily be handled via time skips which have been present throughout the game, which may just seek to show crucial moments of Shaun's trial. Just a theory. But anyway guys, that's the court theory for Life is Strange 2. This video is much longer than my usual one, so if you made it this far, good job and thank you. It really means a lot to me. The positive feedback on these Life is Strange videos has been overwhelming, and I'm so grateful to those of you who watch and support them. It really means the world to me. I'd like to add in this video that if you like, there's a Life is Strange Discord that I'm a part of, and the link to that will be in the description of this video, and tell them I sent you. So I think that's where we wrap this up. Thanks for watching, I hope you're having a wonderful day, subscribe for more content like this in the future, and as always, remember to keep your cucumbers rated, and have a nice day. Bye guys!